Hello, this is the Convo Guy here. Today I plan on discussing the YSL RICO trial, specifically everything that occurred prior to the trial, the outcome of the trial, and lessons that I acquired from the trial. After all, the YSL RICO trial was the longest trial in Georgia history. So if it was the longest trial in Georgia history, it was also the most expensive trial in Georgia history. After Young Thug decided to plead guilty, that put him in a non-negotiable deal, meaning the judge was going to decide the outcome of the case, not the state. Young Thug is from the Jonesboro South Projects near Cleveland Avenue. This area is dominated by gang affiliations, specifically Bloods. On November 15, 2016, Young Thug founded YSL, which stands for Young Stoner Life, which is his record label. But YSL also stands for Young Slime Life, which is a gang. So YSL stands for gang affiliation and a record label. Birdman was the one that elevated Young Thug's career by having him in Rich Gang. While Young Thug was in Rich Gang, he met fellow rapper Rich Homie Quan. The two of them had a good relationship or friendship or whatever you want to call it, all up until Rich Homie Quan one day called Young Thug gay. This small beef between Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan escalated when Rich Homie Quan's manager, Donald Big Nut Thomas Jr., was murdered outside a barbershop in Atlanta via drive-thru. The car used for the drive-thru was a silver Infiniti Q50. This car was rented 3 months ago prior to the murder of Big Nut, and it was rented under Young Thug's government name. There were 5 individuals who were in the vehicle when the drive-by occurred, and these 5 individuals were all YSL affiliated. So even though Young Thug wasn't directly connected to the murder, he's indirectly connected with the car being rented through his name and the members who were connected to the murder all being YSL members. Rumors have it that Young Thug chose to eliminate Big Nut because he was an informant and he was causing disarray amongst the Bloods hierarchy. So this beef further escalated when YSL started beefing with YFN Lucci. YFN Lucci was being mentored and tutored by Big Nut. So I believe around 2015 or 2016, YFN Lucci held several YSL members at gunpoint and ordered them to strip naked, in which he recorded on video. He even bragged about how he had sex with Young Thug's fiance and wished Young Thug's daughter a happy birthday and posted it on IG. Weeks after, YSL retaliated by shooting at YFN Lucci's house. So this back and forth action reached a breaking point on May 2022 when the district attorney of Fulton County, Finney Willis, hit YSL. Hold up, stop.
Ready, set, go.
This back and forth reached between stop.
Alright, go on when you're ready.
This back and forth between YSL and YFN Lucci went on, and it reached its breaking point on May 2022 when the district attorney of Fulton County, Finney Willis, hit Young Thug and 27 YSL co-defendants with a 56-count RICO indictment. On December 29th, 2022, even before the trial started, YFN Lucci admitted that he wasn't going to testify against Young Thug. He wanted nothing to do with this trial. Jury selection for the YSL RICO trial started on January 4th, 2023, and the trial officially begun on November 27th, 2023. Out of the 27 YSL co-defendants, many of them accepted plea deals to escape long sentences. I don't plan on discussing all these co-defendants, but I plan on talking about 3: Gunna, Lil Woody, and Young Thug's biological brother. Ever since Gunna accepted his plea deal December of 2022, rappers that include Future, Lil Baby, and Lil Durk threw Gunna's name under the bus, and many others didn't want nothing to do with any of his songs, including not wanting to be featured in his album A Gift and a Curse. Surprisingly, there was an individual that supported Gunna. Young Thug's father admitted that Gunna's plea deal didn't hurt his son's case. When Lil Baby referred to Gunna as a snitch, Young Thug's father said that Lil Baby should STFU and questioned why Lil Baby wasn't present at all during the trial supporting his son. On June 11, 2024, Young Thug's dad was seen supporting Gunna at a concert he held at the State Farm Arena. Even Gunna's lawyer, Steve Sato, admitted that Gunna didn't snitch to get out of prison. He quoted saying that none of Gunna's statements could be used against any of the defendants, that Gunna is not cooperating and he's not communicating with the authorities. So if your lawyer's saying this, that says a lot. If your lawyer's saying this, and if Young Thug's dad himself said that the plea deal didn't hurt Young Thug, that's enough evidence that everyone out here in society should stop bashing Gunna and throwing him under the bus. Now to start discussing about YSL Woody. YSL Woody is known for his entertaining remarks and statements that he made during the YSL trial case. So as far as his background, he was already a felon, but it escalated when he was sentenced to prison on October 22nd, 2018 for being a felon in possession of a firearm. He brought a firearm at a gym in Atlanta and left it on the bleachers while he was playing basketball. 20 witnesses saw the gun, and that's when one of the witnesses decided to call the police. He was convicted on many charges, and upon getting out, he was arrested in 2021 for having a gun at a traffic stop. Now, this was his second arrest, so he was potentially facing a 10-year prison sentence, but began cooperating with the authorities on crimes that YSL had made, crimes that they were going to make, and he was open to giving the authorities any information on Young Thug, including a confession. This is actually one of the quotes from Lil Woody from the RICO trial. This is what he quoted specifically. So this is what happened. The police kept locking me up for whatever they could. The police was on me, and they kept bringing up Young Thug's name. So what I did was, to get him off of me, I said, Thug did this, Thug did that, because I knew he didn't do anything. And then in my mind, I knew that the police could never go mess with him. So it was easy for me to try to throw the blame on him to get them off of me. And that's what I was doing for all these years. I don't remember what I done told them in the past, but my whole motive was Thug did it because I knew he didn't do it, and they couldn't lock him up. And then they kept talking about Thug. So guess what I was gonna tell them? Yeah. Thug did this, Thug did that. So basically, in one of the trial cases, Lil Woody actually admitted during one of the days during trial that he pinpointed the blame on Thug just to get the pressure off of him. This is shocking, but in his eyes, he felt that Young Thug was innocent, and he wasn't innocent because he was going to be facing a 10-year sentence. So he was just gonna be lying on Young Thug to get the pressure off of him. So basically fabricating a bunch of false statements. And in his eyes, he felt that this was the right thing to do to get the pressure off of him and put attention on Young Thug. And even if the attention was on Young Thug, since Young Thug didn't do any of these things that Woody was telling the authorities that Young Thug was doing, it didn't matter because at the end of the day, Young Thug didn't do any of these things. This seems shocking, but in his mind, this was what he felt like was the right thing to do. So, in one of the days during the YSL trial case, Woody admitted that he fabricated the story on what he was telling authorities about Young Thug, and he was just lying to the authorities on Young Thug just to get the pressure off of him. In his eyes, he felt like this was the best thing to do because whatever he was telling the authorities was fabricated. So even if the authorities stepped up and put pressure on Thug, it was all made up statements. Young Thug was gonna be good, and I guess Woody was gonna be straight since he was capping just to give authorities false statements just so he won't have to deal with a 10-year sentence. Little did Woody know that the fabricated story that he was telling these authorities was the reason why the YSL trial case ended up extending to 2 years. So you could pretty much make an argument that Young Thug was in jail this long because of YSL Woody fabricating stories to the authorities just to get the pressure off of him. So yes, the genesis or the root of this whole case started when YSL Woody or Lil Woody was locked up and was arrested at that traffic stop and didn't want to face a 10-year prison sentence. So was just leaking information to the feds on YSL operations. The third individual that I plan on talking about is Young Thug's biological brother. In December of 2022, Young Thug's biological brother accepted a plea deal where he was credited for 2 years in prison and was going to serve the next 10 years on probation. Unfortunately, on June 5th of 2023, he violated the terms of his probation and was now facing 9 years and 6 months in prison. So now I plan on discussing the outcome of the YSL RICO case in the eyes of Young Thug. One, he's facing a 15-year probation, and if he violates one of the terms of his probation, he'll be facing 20 years in prison. Two, Young Thug is banned from the Metro Atlanta area for the first 10 years of his probation. He can only come to the Metro Atlanta area for family weddings, funerals, serious illnesses, and I believe very important factors. Young Thug cannot be around the Metro Atlanta area for the first 10 years of his probation except for family weddings, funerals, graduations, and serious illnesses. Young Thug cannot promote gang violence in any shape or form. Even though Young Thug is banned from the Metro Atlanta area, he is allowed to travel to any region of the world. Young Thug must do 4 live presentations or concerts. For every year that he's on probation, he must do 4 presentations or concerts to children that's against gang violence. And by doing this, it's going to count towards the 100 hours of community service that he has to do. And Young Thug also cannot speak to any of the co-defendants except for Gunna, because Gunna's in the same label as him and his biological brother. It's funny that he wishes to speak to his biological brother because, as I just talked about, his biological brother violated his plea deal on June 5th, 2023, and is facing 9 years in 6 months. So it would be a smart idea for Young Thug to speak to his biological brother, because his brother could give him some important information on what to do to not violate the probation. Because his brother was on a plea deal where he was on probation. He violated his probation and now he has to face years. Young Thug has to do the same thing. If you violate your probation, you'll face years. So it's a wise thing, it's a smart thing if Young Thug communicates with his brother, because his brother is going to tell him, yo, make sure you do not violate your probation or you will be just like me. Now to discuss the lessons that I took from this YSL RICO trial. So to discuss the lessons that I learned from this YSL RICO trial. One, I believe that just like Lil Durk, how Lil Durk was the face of drill music, and with the arrest of Lil Durk, that means drill music is going to take a decline. I believe that Young Thug was the face of trap music, and now that Young Thug is free, that doesn't mean necessarily that he could go back to making trap music again, because his lyrics are going to be used against him if he ends up in court again. Actually, I don't even think he's going to be in court again. Anything that he posts online, any music, they're going to use against him. They're just going to throw him in prison. There won't be no trial next time. So Young Thug was the face of trap music, and luckily he beat the case, but that doesn't mean he could go back to making trap music. That means trap music is going to take a decline, because now trap music is just... The first lesson that I got out of this YSL RICO trial is that just like how Lil Durk was the face of drill music, and how drill music is going to take a decline due to Lil Durk's arrest, I feel like trap music is going to take a decline because Young Thug can't make certain songs as freely as he was once doing in the past. Now, any lyrics could be used against him, and if the authorities feel like he's promoting gang violence, gun violence, they're just going to throw him in jail. They'll be like, you know what, you violated your probation. We're going to throw you in prison. We're not going to do another trial that's going to be 2+ years. We're just going to throw you in prison. So with that being said, trap music will need a new rapper to be their face, because that genre of music is going to take a hit. Now that Young Thug is going to have to be very selective as to the type of lyrics that he's going to be putting in his music. The second lesson that I got from this case is that Young Thug is going to have to rebrand himself. He's going to have to let the YSL slime image go, because anything that's promoting that YSL imagery is just going to hurt him and end up making him violate his probation. So he's going to have to, he doesn't have to, but it would be wise if Young Thug rebrands himself. It would be the best thing for him to do. The third lesson that I learned is that in tough times, an enemy could be a friend. And what do I mean by that? His enemy, YFN Lucci, chose not to testify in court, which says a lot about the guy. I believe as of recently, YFN Lucci was attacked. I believe he was stabbed in prison. So I believe at some point, Young Thug is going to have to make peace with YFN Lucci, because you got to think about it. Young Thug's case would have been a whole lot different if Lucci testified against Thug and really said everything. So this former enemy is going to have to be a friend. And even if he's not a friend, Young Thug is going to have to make him neutral, where he's not a friend, but he's not an enemy. Because right now, I believe Lucci is in jail. And With Doug being free, he should just make peace with Lucci so that other YSL members, specifically the ones that are locked up, don't go after Lucci. Because had Lucci said a mouthful, Doug's fate would have been a whole lot different than what it is now. The fourth lesson that I learned from this YSL Rico trial is that it put a misconception in the youth's mind. Basically, with Young Thug escaping prison time, you got these teens thinking that, oh, all you gotta do is hold it down and you won't escape prison time. I believe this is a big misconception. I believe the matter of the fact is, if you try to live that street life and try to bring it to a profession, it don't matter if it's filming, it don't matter if it's music, it don't matter if it's modeling, it don't matter if it's the educational field, it don't matter if you try to bring the streets to these fields, you will take an L. The matter of the fact is, the youth should just understand to leave this, whatever happens in the street, just leave it in the street and don't try to bring it to whatever profession you're doing, because these rappers don't know that their lyrics are being monitored by the FBI, by the CIA, and is being used against them. Same thing happened with Lil Durk. Same thing happened with Young Thug. So just because you dodge a bullet by not physically being in prison doesn't mean that you're still not being watched. Doesn't mean you're still not being monitored. Doesn't mean that your conversations with your buddies are not being tapped in. Moral of the story is ultimately leave the street life. I think it was a wise decision for the lawyer who presided. I know judges came and went, but the judge that made the ultimate decision, I believe she was a lady. I believe she looked into Young Thug's heart and realized that if I send him back to Atlanta, he's going to get himself in more mess. Therefore, let me make it hard for him not to be around Atlanta. Let me ban him from Metro Atlanta. So this judge could have easily released Young Thug back in the streets for him to either be killed or to kill others, for him to ultimately end up back in court. The judge sentencing was actually genius, because by her banning him from the Metro Atlanta area, she's actually saving Young Thug from himself. Young Thug has a second chance at life. It's rare when all the evidence points at you, yet you beat the case. And he was released on Halloween. I believe there were a lot of strings being pulled behind closed doors that led to that decision. And with Young Thug being given a second chance at life, I believe it would be wise for him to not be in Georgia, for him to potentially move to a different state and just reflect on life, pick up a Bible, start getting into the eternal word of God, and confess his sins, because I believe that he physically dodged a bullet by not being in prison, but that doesn't mean he'll be at peace, because I believe at this very moment he's still thinking about certain things that unfolded. If he's a smart man, he would be trying to save his eternal soul. Even though he's physically not in prison, that doesn't mean you're at peace. My final piece of advice to Mr. Williams is for him to confess his sins to Jesus Christ, for him to ultimately have that peace in his heart, because that sentencing that the judge gave him was just a slap on the wrist. So yeah, I believe him being banned from Metro Atlanta would be the best thing to do. I believe he should stay away from not just Atlanta, but from Georgia. I believe he should stay away from any gang affiliated states. He should just go to a state for him to think about his life, get into the word, and simply rebrand himself. I want to give a shout out to Young Thug's lawyer, Brian Steele. I feel like he did a wonderful job. Brian Steele is not only going to get paid, but he's going to have countless clients coming in. I recommend Lil Durk reaching out to Mr. Steele to help him in his pending case. And I even started thinking about this too. Behind closed doors, I'm pretty sure Mr. Steele saw Young Thug crying many times where Steele was like, yeah, I gotta help this guy not be locked in here. I'm pretty sure that lawyer that represented Young Thug has seen some things that we would never see. I believe that's why he stuck by Young Thug's side and he was rewarded. I'm pretty sure he got paid very well, and I'm pretty sure he's going to have clients rushing in his way. Mysteriously died before he was going to potentially testify in this YSL Rico case. By him not testifying, I feel like that's what escalated the outcome of this trial. Again, I believe Young Thug dodged many bullets. Why Finn Lucci didn't testify, Rich Homie Quan mysteriously dying allowed no extra statements that may have led to Young Thug's fate. So I believe he really dodged a bullet by Rich Homie Quan not testifying, because Rich Homie Quan's manager died, and I'm pretty sure Rich Homie Quan could connect the dots and have Rich Homie Quan testified. Again, Young Thug would be facing some serious time. Even his lawyer probably wouldn't have helped him. So I remember Jeffrey Epstein, when he was in custody, mysteriously died. And had he testified, had Jeffrey Epstein testified, he would have most likely said the names of these individuals that he's been working with for all these years that have attended his island. But since he died, no names were listed. So same thing with Rich Homie Quan. With his death, no extra. With Rich Homie Quan's death, I guess there was no one else important that really had to testify. And with that being said, I believe that's why Young Thug decided to plead guilty. I'm pretty sure Young Thug would not have pled guilty had Rich Homie Quan testified, because he would have said a lot. Just like how Lil Woody, we thought Lil Woody said a lot. Imagine what Rich Homie Quan would have said. So I believe that's why he was just mysteriously silenced, to kind of help Young Thug escape prison. And it kind of makes sense too, because Rich Homie Quan perishes, Young Thug gets out on Halloween. So again, you don't gotta be a scientist to put two and two together. We all know, we could connect the dot and tell that, he dodged a bullet and has a second chance at life. On November 9th, 2024, in a now deleted post on Twitter, Young Thug said, "Gunna, stop acting like we're friends on the internet. I don't know you, my guy." So with that being said, I believe that maybe Young Thug's dad was wrong, that maybe Young Thug, maybe Gunna didn't do much help to Gunna by accepting that plea deal. I believe that we'll really know how Young Thug really feels about Gunna and these other co-defendants that accepted plea deals as the year progresses. And that's that, folks.